Well, welcome back, and want to touch base today on trailers for jigs. And I get asked about that all the time, you know, because there's tons of them out there, and it's important to have a good jig trailer. I know there's times where it probably doesn't matter. I mean, when you get around an aggressive fish, you got something that looks decent, he's going to eat your jig. But there's other times when they really seem to have a preference for a certain style of trailer. Well, let's start with the flipping jigs and go through the trailers I like to use with the flipping jigs. Probably my favorite is the Chigger Craw. You know, the Berkeley Chigger Craw, black and blue. I always like the team, the trailer and the skirt. Try to be matchy-matchy. If it's black and blue, green pumpkin. And a lot of times with the Chigger Craw, if I'm wanting a little bit of a smaller look, like on the 4-inch Chigger Craw, I'll tear off a little piece like that, about that much, and then I'll thread it up on the hook, and right up on that gripper part, and tuck it right between the shank of the hook and the rattle, boom, and you're all set. And that's a great one. Chigger Craw is a good all-around jig trailer. It works, particularly well when you got a little stain to the water, stain to dirty water. It's a good jig trailer. Works all over the country in stained water. That's a good one. Then of course you've got in the Chigger Craw, you've got the 4-inch and the 3-inch model. So if you look, this is a green pumpkin color, but you can see the size difference there. So you've got, when I'm in more of a finesse situation, I'll go to the 3-inch craw. And more of a bigger flipping situation, I'll go to the 4-inch. But I will sometimes fish a 3-inch on a flipping jig, just when I want a more compact look. And then we've got another trailer that really is dynamite, and that's this little Chigger Chunk. Now, if you look at the Chigger Chunk, it's a little different than the Chigger Craw. It's got the legs really flap on the Chigger Chunk. And of course, when you get these, I'm sure you guys know this, but you want to break that little deal apart that holds those together. We put that on there so that the legs wouldn't get twisted in the package. But anyway, I break that off of there. The legs are free to dangle around. And what the beauty of this Chigger Chunk is as the jig sinks to the bottom, these legs are going like this the whole time. And the Chigger Craw does that too, but probably not to the extent that the Chigger Chunk does it. So these two little guys are real similar, actually. This is the 3-inch Chigger Craw right here, and then I've got the 3-inch Chigger Chunk. And there's not a whole lot of difference there, but there is a difference. You can see the 3-inch Chigger Craw has little legs on it, and the body's a little bit thinner. And then on the Chigger Chunk in this hand, the body's fatter, and there's no appendages. But the legs are about the same. They're identical. So you've got there's times where you might want a more natural look with some appendages and a thinner body, maybe more in a finesse situation. You go the 3-inch Chigger Craw. But if you want that flapping action, that Chigger Chunk is a dynamite little tool. Those are some of my favorites. And then, of course, there's always the chunky trailer, the 3-inch and the 4-inch chunky trailer. Comes in a package like this, but you just break that apart, break the leg apart, and you've got a nice little chunk to go. It doesn't look like a crawdad like the Chigger Craw, but it's more of a chunk style trailer that you can just throw on the back of your jig. We used to use these all the time before we came out with those Chigger Craws and those the Chigger Craw and the Chigger Chunk. But with the Chunk, there's a couple ways you can rig it. One is I like to rig it with the chunky side down, and you can just hook it right. I've just taken that and I've hooked it right through the middle of the chunk, and then I just fish it right in the back of the jig like that. That makes a lot bigger profile in the water. But the other way I'll do it is I'll take it and I'll thread it. I will thread the hook all the way through the chunk and come out at the bottom, and then I will push the whole chunk up on the gripper barb like that. And so that's held up there on the hook by the gripper barb. Then you've got a more smaller, more compact profile that way. So those are all, those are my favorites. And then I've got a few others here too. We have a new one this year called the Crazy Legs Chigger Craw in power bait. And it's a chigger craw, as you can see, but it also has, boom, it's got these little legs, curly tail legs, and they're all attached in the package. And they're attached in the package so that they don't get all tweaked and bent and destroyed, their shape destroyed in the package. So you basically got a chigger craw with a couple curly antennas. You know how a crawdad has little antennas that stick out? And so that's kind of what that looks like, except it's, you know, these little curly tails are just going to have more of an undulating swimming action in the water. A little more action in addition to the pinchers. And I would use this, and where I've had success with it really good is in dirty water. It just really adds a whole bunch more bulk to the bait and more action to the bait, which you don't need that in clear water, but in dirty water, this is a great little trailer. And in fact, this color, this black with red flake trailer, is like my go-to color in dirty water, you know, when you've got 2 foot or less of visibility. So that's a good one. That's a new one that's a good, you know, big, that's what it looks like before you break all the appendages apart. That's the new Crazy Legs Chigger Craw. And then finally, the other trailer that I'll use is just this double tail. Just the old double tail. And sometimes I'll flip the old double tail, you know, on the back of my flipping jig. And just because it has a unique action with those tails kicking in the water and stuff. So those are my trailers for the flipping jig. There's a bunch of them, but I flip a lot, you know. So those are my tips there. And in the next segment that you can upload, we will be talking about trailers for finesse jigs and football jigs.